All right, I want to go over our Project 1 outline. So Project 1 is worth 50 points. It's worth 50 points. So I'm going to click on this, and I want you to see that there's a rubric tied to this. So the rubric are the expectations for the project. And you'll notice that the rubric is broken down into 5 categories worth 10 points each. And if you fulfill the requirement, you'll get 10 points. If you don't fulfill the requirement, it will affect your grade. So what is the first criteria? What does it say there? Timeliness. So that means you turned it in on time. Okay, so I'm giving you a grade for that. The next topic is conceptual relevancy. So did your project follow the conceptual expectations and conceptually connect visually with your topic or direction given? So you should have a concept picked already. Your concept is the illustrator that you've been researching. Does that make sense? So some of this should already be done, but we'll talk about visually connecting here in a few minutes. You'll notice that there is a presentation portion of this grade. So did you present on time and participate in the formal critique? So we have a critique for this project. So all of you will be required to present your project here at the station in front of your class, right? And on that day, I will give you an outline of what you are to discuss. Okay, so there's a presentation portion. Professionalism. The project should strive for a real-world look and feel. The project should follow best practices such as organized layers and correct naming strategy. Composition. Does your illustration frame the content correctly and per the expectations outlined in the project handout? Head shot, shoulder up. So you'll notice that those are the things that I'm going to grade you on. So any questions or concerns about the rubric? Anything that doesn't make sense here? No? It all makes sense? Okay, so let's go over the handout. That way you guys can see what the expectations are. So you've been working on this all quarter, and you've been gathering materials for this project. So the goal is to create an illustration or portrait of a historically relevant designer. The project will be connected to Project 3 or Project 2, the layout design. So you need to finish this to finish the layout design. Okay? The concept or choice should draw from a historically relevant designer, graphic designer from the 20th or 21st century. So you've been researching this, you've probably picked somebody already. The person must have played a major role in design, have a distinct style, and tied to a specific font face. This means they either designed a font or are associated with a specific font. Expectations must contain these elements. You may have completed some of these steps, so you probably have done this already. So the first thing, you can illustrate this both in grayscale or in color. So I want you to know that if you're using a black and white image, as an example, you can illustrate this in black and white. Or if the image is in color, you can use color. So don't be afraid, either way is appropriate. Try a clever method of adding color. There's a feature that we're going to look in class called the mesh. I don't want you using mesh for this assignment. Okay, so we will discuss mesh later. I don't want you using mesh. No effects or filters. It needs to be a headshot, shoulders up. So like from here to here. Does that make sense? I don't want the full figure. I don't want to see the whole person. And the reason for it is that it's too small. Right? I want to see shoulders up. That's why I had you research portraits. Okay? So gather biographical information. You've done that. Right? You did research. You wrote about them. Gather a library of portraits. You've done that. Gather a library of examples of the designer's work. You have done that. Write a 3-paragraph summary on why you made this choice. You have done that as well. And there's another feature called Illustrator Trace that is not acceptable. You cannot use that feature. If you use that feature, I will give you an F. So you need to draw this yourself, okay? Try to use a stylistic graphical style, possibly following the designer's work. So is anybody doing Saul Bass? So only one person. So Saul Bass did what I call block illustration style. You saw examples of his work, right? So maybe you draw Saul Bass looking like Saul Bass, you know? So it doesn't mean it looks like a photograph. It's going to have a graphical quality, but that might be okay. Okay, is anybody illustrating Sister Karita Kent? Anybody working with Sister Karita Kent? Nobody. Okay, what about, let's see here. Anybody doing Milton Glaser? Any Milton Glazers? Okay, Chip Kidd? Chip Kidd. So what's unique about Chip Kidd is that he doesn't have a distinct style. Chip Kidd produces book covers, and they all are very unique onto that specific book. So if you pick Chip Kidd, you have a lot of different directions that you could go in. But he does have some very distinct styles within those projects. So you could mimic the way that you illustrate Chip Kidd to look like one of his book covers. So these are the expectations, the things that you need to gather and consider when making the portrait. So this is the process. This is the process. You're going to research the designer. Have you done this? Yes, you did this. Select your topic. Did you do that? Okay. Research images. You did that. Write your summary. You did it. Use an image as a template. So you're going to, part of a designer's responsibilities is to learn how to edit work. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I gather a bunch of material and then I decide which I want to use. So I'm editing, I'm filtering through the work. Maybe I find 100 pictures, but I'm only going to use 10 of them. It's my responsibility to pick what's best that tells the story. So you've gathered a library of portraits of your subject matter. I want you to pick one portrait. One. You're only illustrating one. You're going to pick one portrait, and that's what you're going to illustrate. And so you're going to create the illustration. You can illustrate the designer in any style, and you are invited to frame or create an interesting composition as long as it's shoulders up for the project. Make sure your reference image has appropriate detail and information for the illustration. So make sure your reference image has appropriate detail. So there's a couple of designers, mid-century designers, where there's a lot of bad pictures of them. So one of them is Jacqueline Casey. I love Jacqueline Casey, but there's a lot of blurry, grainy images, and if you can't extract detail from it, it's not going to look good. Another designer is Nietzsche, Eric Nietzsche. There's only like 4 or 5 pictures of him, and some of those are really small and low res. They're not going to work. Find the best one that you can, the one with the most pixels or the largest DPI as a reference for your illustration. So if you find a little thumbnail, that's not good enough. You need a high-res image or the best resolution possible. So this is to be illustrated in Illustrator. So, and the document size, what does it say right here? 8.5 by 11. In what format? What does it say right there? Portrait. So that means when you draw or you create your document, it should be like this. This is portrait format. This is landscape. This is portrait. This is landscape. So you're going to draw it like this? No, you're going to draw it like this. Okay? You're going to draw it in portrait format. And what do I want from you? An Adobe Illustrator file uploaded to Canvas. What is the due date? I think the due date's wrong. I have to fix it. But we'll go over that here in a second. So these are the expectations. Is there anything here that needs to be clarified? So the great thing about this project, you've been building towards it all quarter long. You have gathered the material, you've selected your topic. You should be prepared to pick one of the images and start illustrating it.